Hey, welcome to my channel. This is Spirit Soul Sense, information for your soul, and I am Sharice. And one of my favorite books of all time is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It is life-changing. It was life-changing for me. And I recently reread one of the chapters. I probably look at it every year. Sometimes I take a deep dive. Like this year, I'm planning to read the whole thing. But I recently reread the chapter on enlightened relationships. And I wanted to share my thoughts with you and also use myself as an example for some of my growth. I've shared in other videos that I think marriage and long-term romantic relationships in general, they serve a very specific purpose, which is to help the evolution of your soul. And Eckhart Tolle talks about in his book too that even if you're in bad relationships, it's better than being alone, because people that we are close to have the potential to teach us so much about ourselves and to help us grow and evolve. So in the beginning of this chapter, he talks about basically salvation and this idea that a lot of us have, and I have had as well, that something or someone in the future is going to show up and save us, is going to make our lives better, is going to help us stop stressing, is going to help us feel some sense of purpose in life. And really, it's not true. Let me tell you, it's not true. There is no one who's going to save you. There is no thing, no degree, no marriage, no business. There's nothing that will give you the feeling of being saved long term. It might last temporarily. Like you might get a new degree or get a new job and feel very satisfied inside, but it doesn't last. It's really just temporary, because what you're looking for essentially is this deeper connection to God. And you have found things in this world, in this life, that bring you meaning, but they do not compare and they cannot sustain your sense of wholeness in the long term. So Eckhart Tolle defines true salvation as a state of freedom from fear, from suffering, from a perceived sense of lack, because none of us are lacking anything. We are enough, we are whole just as we are. And insufficiency, and therefore true salvation is freedom from all wanting, needing, grasping, and clinging. So if we're talking about enlightened relationships, in your relationship, if you're experiencing salvation before or during the relationship, you're not going to feel clingy. You're not going to feel like you cannot live without this person. You're going to know that it is nice having this person here with me, but God, the universe, being, I have a deeper sense of meaning and truth to myself that I know, so that there's nothing, no one here on earth that can give me this sense of freedom. Salvation does not come from a person. It does not come from anything we get here. You have to really dive deep for it. So he talks about this idea of love-hate relationships. And I've heard a lot of people use the term love-hate relationships. I myself have used it. I've talked in another video about being in an abusive relationship. And every relationship is not abusive that has, like what he's talking about. Most of them are just dysfunctional in that it doesn't really work. People are not really happy, but they're kind of sticking with something because they think this is what they need to keep in order to feel good about themselves. In these relationships, emotions can oscillate very quickly to anger, deep grief, frustration, all those kind of things that wouldn't really happen if the person in the relationship was feeling very secure and connected to the God inside of them. This relates very closely to relationships being addicting and the sex in relationships being addicting. Sex is something very spiritual, so it makes sense that people are drawn to that feeling and sensation when it comes to being in a relationship and staying in a relationship. The orgasms that people feel, the connectedness, the intimacy that a lot of people feel is, I think, one of the most natural ways to feel one with God, like on earth, because you stop thinking and you are only experiencing, like you're in the now fully, and you get a short glimpse, you get a glimpse of God and stillness, and that can be addicting to folks. So some people might feel like that relationship and sex with that person is the answer to all their problems, because they end up feeling really good inside for a temporary amount of time. But it doesn't last. Nothing that's based on like our outside, your role, your possessions, none of that stuff is really going to sustain your sense of self for very long. My wording is that marriage's purpose is for the evolution of your soul. And Eckhart Tolle has his own wording that I think says the same thing as mine. He says relationships, intimate relationships, these romantic relationships, long-term, intimate romantic relationships. And I mean, there are relationships with friends and family members that can do very similar things. But when you also give your body to another person, things tend to be different. They change. Eckhart Tolle says, intimate relationships do not cause pain and unhappiness. They bring out pain and unhappiness. So someone recently told me that fasting or abstaining from something that you enjoy or that you do mindlessly or that you use to distract you, abstaining from that thing can help all the underlying feelings bubble up to the surface. And that's sort of what happens in relationships. Over time, you become comfortable. That person ends up pushing on your buttons. Pushing on your buttons is just another way to get at you have these wounds underneath that haven't been dealt with, and you need to grow from them. And so they just bring up what's inside of you, what you need to work on, what is there for you to evolve on. That's what relationships are there for. Eckhart Tolle then goes on to detail how you can move from an addictive sort of relationship to an enlightened relationship. And it really goes back to what he talks about watching the thinker, paying attention to your thoughts, not being controlled by your thoughts. Then you stop judging yourself, you stop judging other people, you're not playing mind games, you're showing up as your whole self, and you're relating to people now without a bunch of expectations about what the future has to hold. You'll then enter this realm of not identifying with your mind, your thoughts, and relating to your relationship as a spiritual practice, as a means for you to grow and evolve and keep ascending higher and higher in your consciousness. That means not taking things your partner does personal. That means not becoming emotional about something that you were triggered by. It's really about taking the time to pause, like let your thoughts happen, don't try to control them. Let your feelings happen, don't try to stop them or make them into something else. Just experience it. Like that is such a wealth of information. Paying attention to what you're going through right now, what these feelings are telling you right now. And the most important step is being willing, being open to do things differently. I didn't get to where I am by hiding myself. I really had to have courage to be vulnerable, to show up as myself, and to continue practicing to show up as myself every time I'm in a situation that's uncomfortable, every time I'm sharing something about my past that might be embarrassing or something that I'm not very proud of. It's really about just your intention. My intention is to learn, grow, evolve, ascend. And so that's what I'm going to get in life. Opportunities where I am going to be able to do those things. And I hope those are some of your goals too. To grow, to enjoy life. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. I've talked about in another video that How was school? Good. Your bag is open.
Oh, it is.
Wide open. Why is that? Okay. Can I have a few minutes to do a video and then you can come out here? Thanks.